Right, time being 6 o'clock, I'm going to call the Board of Health meeting to order. All members are present with the exception of Clay Kelly. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May you seated. First item on our agenda is announcements from the Health Department. I will turn things over to our Health Agent, Chris Schultz, for those announcements.
All right. So remind me next year to take the week of leaf collection off from work. So that was last week, curbside yard waste pickup. We still have some stragglers out there. The trucks will be picking up any bags that were missed on the regular trash days, which is not an invitation for people to add bags. We already know which ones have been left behind, so we'll be grabbing those up this week. On that note, our compost site is closed for the year. If anybody has any mattresses that they need to have recycled, they can call the health department and we will schedule a time to meet them there during business hours for mattresses. But the recycling and the leaf collection is over until the spring. Thank all our volunteers for their great help to make that possible. And I think that's all I have for announcements.
Any COVID updates?
No, Lindsay just got back from vacation today, so numbers are going up. I know over last week we weren't tracking daily, but there were, I think we were up 31 cases.
And the wastewater trends up probably?
Probably, I haven't looked at that.
Any other questions for the Health Department? No? We can move on to our next item. Next item on our agenda is discussion and vote to update combined rubbish, garbage, recycling, collections, rules, and regulations. What this is a vote on, and Chris mentioned this in the email, is Section F of those regulations defines what items are prohibited due to the state prohibiting textiles and mattresses from the trash collection. We want to add them to that prohibited list so that our regulations are in line. So it's a small change. With that, is there any discussion on this or any action?
There was one other, I think it's the next section G was the pickup items. We want to add mattresses to that as well.
I may have missed that one. I was skipping.
Actually, no, I'm sorry, to take mattresses out because it's currently listed as a curbside pickup. They will no longer be picked up curbside.
Didn't you say that Boston Carpeting was picking up?
So there's an option for recycling, but the specific regulations are talking about pickup of waste.
Okay. So that change as well. These are the two changes for that.
I'll make a motion to make the changes to the trash regulations section F to add that textiles and mattresses are not to be need to be recycled, and then make the aforementioned changes to section G as well.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Kevin to make the changes as outlined. I'm not going to repeat them. And I have a second from Katie. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And it passes. Great. Moving on, our next action item, or action and discussion item, is a discussion on updating the regulation restricting sale of tobacco, vape products, and the regulation prohibiting smoking in the workplaces and public places. So this is something we started last meeting. I sent an email out right before our meeting tonight with this document. There is another version that Chris has as well. That, if you don't have a copy of that, we can make that available now. Essentially what we are going to be doing with this, we're going to start with the sales regulation. And what I've done in this copy that was sent out was I've gone through the regulation that we have in place now and just updated this copy that the Massachusetts Health Board, so the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards provided, and put in any options that we already have in place in here. So anything that, number of permits, things like that, that's our Abington already has is in this version that was emailed out. Everything else that's in green are things that we can change. Things that are in yellow have been copied from Massachusetts general laws by the Massachusetts Health Board Association. Otherwise, these are what the Massachusetts Health Board Association recommends stays in the regulation of this nature. So The plan, I believe, would be to go through, we'll start doing that now, and looking at those green sections and figuring out if we want to keep what's there, modify what's there, add into ours what isn't already there, and yeah, move from there. So go section by section on those.
So you just sent that out tonight?
Yes, but we gave this out with the same green sections that we're going to go over at the last meeting.
Same thing.
It's the same thing.
Oh.
Yeah, if that exact copy is not there, we have it, but it was sent out with this stuff.
And what does that one say at the top?
2021 sales regulation. Yeah, if that's something we need a copy of, Chris has the extra copies of. And the thing that was sent out tonight was just, basically just had our stuff put into it, so we can always just say that verbally what those things are, it doesn't have to be. Yeah. So can you hand one of those down here?
All right, is somebody taking notes? That's my note copy.
The ones that you took away?
Oh, the ones that I took away?
Yeah,
Oh, all right.
it's the same thing.
Okay.
It isn't, but it is.
So tell me again what the color code is?
Yeah, so what it is it's hard to see with this. The lighter color is yellow. And those sections are language copied from the latest state law and DPH regulations. The darker ones, which is green, highlighted sections, they're unique policy, local policy decisions. So they're the ones that we need to be, those are the decisions that we need to make.
Green is,
Green are our decisions, yellow are Massachusetts
Right.
law language. The difference in the thing that was sent out tonight is it just includes an asterisk if we didn't already have it in place, which I will explain as we go through because I have that copy, and that's the only difference.
so the green things,
The green things are what we need to change, or add, or keep the same depending upon what it is. So, for example, like the first thing that shows up is on the third, I'm sorry, not the third page. B.
second page.
The third page, because it's double-sided.
Right.
Where it says some of the definitions, cigar, right here. The first one, for example, is tobacco leaf in such kits, things like that. It's determining whether we want to include that language.
Sorry, can you repeat the last thing you said?
Yeah, so the first definition is cigar. That's on,
Yep, I'm there, I'm where you are.
and the absolute last step that's highlighted on there.
So we're just deciding if we want to keep it or,
Or we can add it.
Yeah, so that's to decide whether we want to add that language in. So right now, we have the rest of the definition of cigar in without the asterisk section, which is, and that's on my copy. The highlighted section. We don't have that highlighted section in there now.
I think I would put it.
So how did the green get there? Did you type that in?
Nope, Bill Green was put in there by the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards.
So this is the generic form. We have to update ours to reflect what the,
Because when I look through these, there's about 10 definitions that we don't have, many of which include things like school and vaping and things like that, which are superseded by MGL, but there are certain things that aren't, and that's what we're going through now. So
So this is just saying like, you know, whether it's rolled already or whether it's all the supplies that you need to make your own roll. So I want to include them both.
it just further defines. So
Yeah.
somebody can't say like, well, it's not a cigar.
Exactly.
Right. That's all it is. It's just
So I
to
think
kind of,
add it.
to make sure it's all encompassing of how the industry may have changed.
Right.
But I'll make a motion to include the tobacco leaf and such kits or roll-on packages shall be considered blunt wraps for the purpose of this regulation.
Second.
there's a motion to add the changes worded. A second from Katie. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So going forward, you, like this, we agree to say, we'll just say as written?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely do that.
Okay.
So what about the yellow?
So the yellow is the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. It's the wording that is copied from the other copy that we had. So anything that's in here and is also in here highlighted in yellow. So they're just using the same wordage. So where it says electronic nicotine delivery system, that's how it's outlined in here as well. And that's all that means, is that it's language taken from Department of Public Health.
So I feel like it's a given then anything in yellow needs.
Yeah, those aren't up for us to decide.
Yeah,
Those
okay,
are-
all right.
That's language that TPH
Yellow
has
is a
decided.
given.
So we need to make a
Yellow
motion to
supersedes.
put it there or no?
What was that?
It's already going to be added, or do we need to make a motion to officially add it?
When we decide to put the entire regulation in effect, we're comfortable with it, that will all get added because this will be the new regulation.
Okay.
Most of this is already in there, but for example, some of these yellow things, electronic nicotine delivery system, flavored tobacco product, liquid nicotine container, all are not in our current regulations. So they will all be added as a lump thing because they're in the state's regulations now. The next thing that is in green is rolling papers. That was not added to our regulation at all. Rolling papers are sheets, rolls, tubes, cones, leaves that do not contain tobacco, which are used for rolling cigarettes either by hand or with roll-your-own machine. When rolling a cigarette, the filler may be tobacco, cannabis, or other commonly smoked herbs. So if we want to regulate them, we should contact a tobacco control specialist. So I know this was something that DJ Wilson talked about at that time. I'll be honest with you, I can't remember exactly what his recommendation was on that, unless you do, Chris or Kevin.
I think he was in favor of banning.
He was as well. If that's something we want to look back on, we can always come back to it.
Banning rolling papers?
Well, this is about including the definition in here. So let's wait. Actually, my recommendation would be let's wait until we get to that part of the regulation to decide whether we're going to regulate it.
So that was the next green item.
Correct.
So we're waiting on it?
Because we technically haven't decided whether we're going to regulate it. So if we're not going to regulate it, then let's not include it.
Are you voting to include it in your definition?
Yes, but I'm pretty sure it says not to include it if we're not going to regulate it.
Okay.
So you want to pass over it for now?
For now,
Until when?
until let's decide later on regulation if we're going to
Regulated.
regulate it, and then we can just add the definition in if we'd like to.
So this is just the definition.
Just the definition.
I see.
We're only in the definition section right now.
Okay.
The following is smoking bar.
Do you have, I'm sorry, Chris,
Yeah.
do you have another copy you can give Ellen?
No, good,
You sure?
thank you. We've been dealing with this with the housing authority.
So the next part is smoking bar, not the entire definition, but just the very last sentence where it says smoking bar shall include, but not limited to those establishments that are commonly known as cigar bars, hookah bars, and vape bars.
Do we need this? Because we don't have one.
Oh,
Do we want to have one just so that,
well, so smoking bar, that whole definition is not in our regulations at all now. So all of that wordage, except for that last sentence, will be added anyways.
okay,
The question is just, do we want to include that in case an establishment of that nature does decide to come to Abington, I guess.
So, I'm looking at the whole rest of that smoking bar definition, and I realize it is the latest state law and DPH health regulations in yellow.
Yeah.
But from the other paperwork you gave us last time, it struck me that part of the definition, let me just read it, an establishment that exclusively occupies an enclosed indoor space, smoking bar. I thought it was kind of, I don't know what the word is, kind of narrowed it down too specifically. It says enclosed space, yet most restaurants have outdoor patios. So I think enclosed space leaves it open to people saying, well, this is an outdoor patio.
yeah, just get rid of indoor and call
Well,
it
this is-
enclosed space.
This is
agree.
an establishment that engaged in a retail sale of tobacco. So if it's not a retail store, then this doesn't apply to that.
Smoking bar. So
Derives revenue from the sale of food, alcohol, or other beverages that is incidental.
for consumption by consumers on the premises. My hang up with this is that it says enclosed indoor space.
So generally speaking, if you go to Boston, there are cigar bars, things like that, that you can find. I think that's not something that we have, so I think that's why they call it a smoking bar, but generally speaking, I think the business would be more of a like cigar bar type of thing.
Right.
So I don't think that, it's always indoors, is my point.
Always indoors?
Well, and I think
Well-
when it goes to outside, isn't, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but using cigarettes within 25 feet of a building?
It's usually entrances,
Entrances.
with the exception of like, I think healthcare facilities is premise.
So, not particularly this one, but there was, one of them I looked at was all about enclosed space. I just think, so we don't have any smoking bars, okay. Then the idea is to put this policy in place, so when one does come, they won't be able to say, well, we're not regulated, so what's not regulated we can do by right. And if we did get one, I don't know why, in Boston, they're always indoors. Maybe it's a space thing there. They don't, generally, if it's downtown, they don't have room for an outdoor space. But I don't like the idea of enclosed space in any of these definitions.
And so you mean expanding to include all space owned by that, all on the premises of that business?
Yeah, I think, well, can we just eliminate that where it's the yellow highlighted state law and DPH regulation?
Well, this is where it gets sticky, and this is why I want to look at it for a second. As far as smoking bars go, depending on how it's regulated, it may say that it is an enclosed space. However, it may be regulated differently in here, saying, well, that includes the premises as well. Which is why, like, for example, with what we talked about a minute ago with rolling papers, it depends on how we regulate it. So if we get to that part of this, we say, hey, it doesn't say that, then I think there would be an adjustment. But looking at it now.
But this is the definition of a smoking bar.
Right, but maybe it says that in the regulation, something to the effect of smoking on the premises, or something like that, that although the establishment is an enclosed place, anything around it. It's like saying that, if you were to do something on the premises of a restaurant, you might not be in the restaurant, but maybe you're in the parking lot still. Even though restaurant may not be defined as its parking lot.
Okay.
It's just intentionally confusing enough on that part. And I'm trying to look really quick and see what's up on that. For example, prohibition of smoking bars. Smoking bars are prohibited. If we want to just do that and make it a blanket thing, then it doesn't matter what we include because they're prohibited in general.
What are you looking at right now?
And that's, so section F is exactly what that says. So that's not currently the case, but if we decide to do that, then it doesn't matter how it's defined, they're just banned.
Just looking at the workplace, smoking regs that Abington has pretty much would effectively ban a smoking bar anyway.
Oh, well, that simplifies.
Just not, it doesn't do it by name, is that what it was?
Yeah, it just makes smoking inside in any business illegal.
So as it stands now, by that logic, we know smoking inside is illegal in Abington.
Right.
So if we wanted to stay consistent with that, then we'll just enact section F, and we don't have to include the smoking bar definition unless we want to. Well, I'm sorry, the rest of the smoking bar definition unless we want to further limit, cigar bars can't be open, hookah bars can't be open.
I think we should probably move forward, Aaron, and then kind of come back if we decide to, change our ban.
I would agree. Let's move to the next green highlighted section. It's actually pretty straightforward because we get to section D, which is required signage, and all the green sections are whether we decide to include smoking bars. So we don't need to touch that until we make that decision. The next one, section E6. As of the effective date of this regulation, no new adult-only retail tobacco stores shall be located within 25 feet of an existing retailer with a tobacco product sales permit. That's not currently in our regulations. That would be a new addition.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Section E6.
So what you're saying is, I'm just trying to.
Yep.
So you have, say, 7-Eleven on the corner of Rockland Ave. If Brennan's Smoke Shop wanted to move, that was a tobacco-only shop next to it, they could.
Right. Well, this is anything that's already in place. It doesn't affect those. They're grandfathered in.
Exactly.
But anybody that would want to.
Future, right.
Yes.
So it's helping those, it's protecting those businesses.
Yeah, it's a future.
Right. No, I get that.
It's more of a health equity issue. So they look at studies, and neighborhoods that are saturated with tobacco retailers have much more high rate of teenage, underage
Makes sense.
smoking. And
I think it could.
So yeah, I make a motion to include it then.
I second that.
I have a motion to include section 6 as written by Katie, second Kevin, and further discussion.
No, I definitely don't care for this. I don't think it's necessary. I think that if 7-Eleven and
Brennan's or whoever, right?
any other smoke shop wanted to be beside each other, that's up to them. I mean, the new establishment knows going into it that the next door neighbor has a permit, and if, say, I don't know who sells cigarettes because I don't buy them, but say there's a liquor store that sells cigarettes and 7-Eleven that sells cigarettes wants to go next door to the liquor store and sell cigarettes, that's up to them. I mean, they know.
Yeah, but it's only
Adult only. So it'd be if, a Brennan's and something like it next to each other. 7-Eleven and that doesn't.
All right, adult only.
Yeah.
So, okay, so then, if it's not adult only, it can go to next door to an existing retailer, but if it is adult only, it can't?
Yes.
I'm not seeing the logic there. I think that if
So you
people
could have, you could
want to
have,
buy cigarettes, they're going to get them.
but you could have two retail establishments that sell cigarettes next door to each other, but you
Mhm.
can't have, say, one establishment that's just selling and selling other things, and an only tobacco store standing right next to it.
Why not? Then the kids that you're targeting are not going in there anyway.
Well, I think from the health equity standpoint, we're trying to reduce that saturation, and I agree with that.
Availability.
But it's, you can put 7-Eleven, two 7-Elevens next to each other, and it's fine by this works. It's just that adult-only establishment, Brennan's or something like that.
By definition, children shouldn't be able, or people under 21 shouldn't be able to get tobacco products anyways, but of course, we all know that they do,
Or putting,
just like other,
or opening a vape shop right next to a
products.
smoking shop, like Brennan's and another smoking shop. A vape shop can't go next to each other by this, because they're both adult-only.
And so then, explain to me again what the need is to eliminate that.
Well, I think
Availability.
to Chris's
Kids.
Personally, as a family person, I don't feel like I want Abington to be associated with a bunch of smoke shops.
I'm not sure empty storefronts are better, but, well,
I'd like to.
you all do what you want, but I just want everybody to know that I'm not in favor of this. I feel like it's limiting the whole competition thing. If somebody chooses to open a adult-only tobacco store next to another, they know what they're getting into, and if that's their choice, I think they should be able to make it. But, okay.
we do have a cap on how many licenses we do.
We're going to get to that. It's 20.
Yeah. You have a motion on the floor.
Yeah. So there is a motion to approve. Is there any further discussion? Motion and a second. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I'm opposed, however you say that here.
The motion passes.
Yep.
The next section is 9, which states that a tobacco product sales permit will not be renewed if the permit holder has sold the tobacco product to a person under the age of 21 3 times within the previous permit year, and the time period to appeal has expired. The violator may request a hearing in accordance with subsection 4 of the violation section.
I vote yes on that. I think 3 strikes, you're out.
I'll make a motion to include that.
Motion from Kevin to include is written, second from Katie. Any discussion on this?
So what happens,
There's an appeal available.
There's an
Their
appeal, yeah,
license
that's
will
later
be
on in this, which I
denied
believe is not.
if they are caught selling
Mm-hmm.
underage
So-
3 times.
what happens the following year? They just completely lose their license permanently? Or is it restored the following year?
It says their license will not be renewed, so on the end of their license renewal, which would be after that year, that they would not be renewed. And then they do have an opportunity to appeal.
Wanted to say,
If they have appealed during the time period that the license is still active, I believe, right? That they have the opportunity to appeal if they're going to be,
I believe they are, if they lose a license, then they're considered a new applicant when they come back.
right,
So they'd have to go through the process
right, to appeal.
even if they don't appeal it, at the beginning of next year, they'd be a new applicant, they have to apply for a new license.
Yeah.
And if the record is the same process as the renewal.
Right.
No difference.
So I have no problem. I mean, if somebody has had 3 opportunities to clean up their act and they didn't, I have no
I
problem
agree.
with that.
Yeah, couldn't agree.
So is it really the same process as a renewal if you're saying that their license is revoked at the end of that fiscal year?
Well, so the
Aren't they
licenses,
essentially a new applicant if their license has been revoked and they have to come in and request?
So after the 3rd time that they get cited, they have the violator, they may request a hearing and come in, and they may be able to persuade this board that they have changed their ways and the internal controls that they've put in place will change the way that things are done in their operation and persuade us to renew that license. But I think it gives us the opportunity to, tell them that we're not going to stand for their inability to stay, to abide by the
Damper
laws.
on underage sales.
Right.
Okay. Number of the violations section.
that is section, I'm looking at that now, it's S. And
Violations.
look at the appeal section. So, Board of Health shall provide notice of the intent to suspend or revoke a tobacco sales permit, which notice shall contain reasons therefore and establish a time and date for hearing. Shall be no earlier than 7 days after the date of said notice. Permit holder or its business agents will have an opportunity to be heard at such hearing and shall be notified of the Board of Health's decision and the reasons therefore in writing. After a hearing, the Abington Board of Health shall suspend or revoke the tobacco permit sales if the board finds that a violation of this regulation occurred. All tobacco products defined herein shall be removed from the retail establishment upon suspension or revocation of the tobacco product sales permit. Failure to remove all tobacco products as defined herein shall constitute a separate violation of this regulation.
Chris, how many violations have we had, like in the last couple of years? Have we had any?
No, and that's the thing to consider with this. If you've gotten to the point where they have 3 violations within a year, they've already been fined $6,000. So somebody not changing at that point,
It's not a very good business person.
yeah, most of our tobacco sales places in Abington are responsible. It's not a big issue, but this gives the board and its agent the teeth to make sure that we don't get to this point.
You've had 3 strikes in a year. I don't think you're worthy of holding a license, that's for sure.
I agree.
So under S violations, B and C, it talks about violations within 36 months.
The Abington regulations are 12. That's where these documents differ. So the Abington regulations currently say 12. We can decide to change that number. So if the second violation is within 12 months of the date of the current violation, fine of $200 will be levied.
2,000. Oh, sorry, not 200.
It might be 1,000. That may have been a copy error on this from one to the other. We may have a different.
I'm thinking about
No.
corporate tobacco.
Our fee schedule, our fines might be different. But
So I'm looking at,
So if our regulations are more restrictive, then they're the ones that would, than the state regulations, then ours would supersede the state. If the states are more restrictive, then they supersede us.
yeah, or we could decide to put what's written there. That's up to us right now.
so you would just eliminate the whole
It's $100, 100 to 200.
violations 1, B, and C? That says 36 months, you would just eliminate those?
No, I'm sorry. That's section 2 is the one we're talking about.
I was talking about section 1,
Section 1 is
because it says within 36 months. So we would just eliminate those?
well, those, we can't eliminate those.
So it says 36 months.
Yeah, so there's,
So you also want to change that?
so that's not currently included in the town's regulations. That's something that needs to be, that would be added, not needs to.
But it's yellow, so it's
Right.
not something we can change.
It's not amendable unless, except for the amount of days that the permits can be suspended. It's the only things that are editable in those sections. So where it says product sales permit shall be suspended for 7 days, we can decide whether it's 7 days. And on section C where it says suspended for 30 consecutive days, we can decide those two. But
So my point is that it says, in the case of a second violation within 36 months of the date of the current violation. So
the
in
difference.
yellow, it's giving
The difference
36 months.
is, section 1 is violating MGL. Section 2 is violating the Abington regulation. So, for violations of this section of this regulation that incorporate Mass General Laws 270, Section 6, 105, CMR 665, if they violate those, 36 months. And we decide how long we're going to suspend their permit. Section 2 is if they violate the town of Abington's regulations that are listed here that are not those ones.
That are not,
They're not from Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 270, which is the other document that we received. Somewhere in my file.
so
So that's the one on that. The one in my file. It's the one that looks like
I
this.
think it actually breaks it down at the bottom of your page.
It does.
It's between the state and the local.
not, that is 105 CMR
665, which is what's
665.
listed at the top there as well. Section 6 and 105 CMR 665.
So it's section 6 in here as well.
It should be. Yeah, no. Regardless, though, whether whether we have the regulation in front of us, they're in this document. Any of the sections that aren't in there, then we don't get a choice to regulate the state law.
So we're going to fine people $1,000 for their first violation of
Anything that's in those,
MGL.
MGL and the CMR, correct?
And we're also going to fine them $100 for their first violation, so $1,100.
No. No. So if they violate sections that are just from DPH, the ones that we're not deciding on right now, that's a $1,000 fine. But if they violate a different section that is in green that are specific just to Abington, then that's a $100 fine.
We could do both, or could you do one or the other?
So if they violate two things, if they open a smoking bar, for example, a very absurd example, that's a $100 fine technically. But that's a specific to Abington regulation. But if they sell to a 21-year-old, that's a $1,000 fine. Sell to under 21, that is.
So what are you saying is town-specific?
Anything in green.
Opposed to MGL?
Anything
In green?
anything in green that we're deciding, that's a Abington specific. Because we're making those decisions now, that's specific to us. But anything that's not is Massachusetts general.
I think that seems reasonable.
There is a motion on the floor to approve E9 about sale to under 21 3 times in a year. We are going to get to that section, so if we want to either decide to take action on this or move to the other one, we can do either.
The motion's already on the floor.
Motion's already on the floor, so. Not hearing any,
Still disagree with that?
I'm just finding it incredibly confusing that we're having two separate sets of fines for essentially the same thing, because one is state and one is ours.
well,
Like, age
the
one is a big one, and I think that one,
the big thing is the state can't regulate things that they don't, they can't fine for things they don't regulate. So, if we want to just make it a $1,000 fine, we can. We just make it blanket across the board for both. But in comparison, the things that we're regulating compared to the state are not as egregious offenses.
right, we don't want it to be a $1,000 fine for something that's not as crucial. Would it help to have some other examples of what a $100 fine would be?
Whatever you want to do.
We can always table and talk about this again. I mean, we get to a point where we're comfortable, and then if we're not, we can come back to it. I mean, we've gotten through half the regulation, which is the furthest we've ever gotten on this, so.
So the state actually does regulate, right? Because
Regulate what?
so S violations 1A, B, and C are the state giving 36 months to commit the infractions with $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 fines. So we can't change that except for the suspension of permit. So then we're going to come along and say, okay, if you have 3 violations within 12 months, we're going to take away your license. We'll only fine you $600 total, but we're going to take away your license. And actually Part C of, B and C of ours says within 36 months, yet
No, it's
this says 3 times within a year.
that,
But I would find that, I mean, if you had 3 violations in 12 months, it's much more egregious than if you had 3 over 36 months.
Right, but, so this says 3 times the green is us, 3 times within the previous year, and then over here, 3 times, this is us again saying 3 times within 36 months, so which is it?
well, so they have sold to a 21-year-old 3 times, which is a state violation. That's a $5,000 fine.
Right. Within 36
So you
months.
can, yeah, but it can be a cumulative thing over the 36, so it's not like every single time you get your license renewed that the clock starts again. If you're still kind of considered a habitual violator if over a 3-year period.
In a 1-year period, if they do it 3 times in a 1-year period, they're getting a $5,000 fine and losing their license. If they do it 3 times in a 36-month period, they're just getting a $5,000 fine. I think that's the difference. for that particular section.
Okay.
The thing is, we can decide, it says right now 12 months in our regulations. If we want to make it 36, we can. If we want to increase the fines, we can. We're not quite at that section yet, but they're pertinent, so it's good to have the conversation.
I just think there's a lot of conflict in the timeframe.
The time frame for selling to 21-year-olds or between the two?
Between the year and then the 3 years.
All of them.
We can also, because we have this section screened, if we want to say within 36 months, they can do it. But I think from a standpoint of licensure, if we're going to look at the previous year, they've done it. And considering that it hasn't, from our knowledge in the health department, been an issue in the past year and a half you've been here.
I do think that, I do think if we've had 3 violations in a year, that's obviously
Yeah, I
something seriously
agree.
wrong.
I agree. I don't want to change it to 36, I want to keep it 12.
Okay.
All right, well, there was a motion on the table to approve section E9 as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, the next is the maximum number of tobacco sales permits. This is the largest section where we have the most authority to decide. As it stands right now, the only sections that are in our regulation are of section 10 here are A, C,
That are not.
that are in them.
That
So
are.
A is in it currently. C is in it currently. No, I'm sorry, C is not. So C is. So A, C, and F.
So you'll be adding D, E, and B.
B, D,
So
the also things to keep in mind is, so right now, we allow 29 tobacco product sales permits,
currently.
reduced by the ones that are currently issued.
So we just need to put 29 in there?
Yep, there's, and again, the copy that I sent out has 29 in there currently.
Okay.
So again, if we want to change that, we can, but all these things are in green, so we can adjust anything here that we need to. But it would be adding sections B, D.
Is there anybody on the waiting list currently, Chris?
No, we have 23
Licenses currently.
And 29 available.
You want to take each section you page and go right down through?
Yeah, let's take each section at a time. So, first section, at any given time, there shall be no more than 29, as it stands now, tobacco product sales permits issued in Abington, reduced by the number of permits not renewed pursuant to this section, 10B below. The note here is that if this needs to be removed, if we're not going to include section B, if we are going to include it and leave it in. So just keep that in mind when we talk about B. No permit renewal will be denied based on the requirements of this subsection, except any permit holder who has failed to renew his or her permit within 30 days of expiration will be treated as a first-time applicant. New applicants for permits who are applying at a time when the maximum number of permits have been issued will be placed on a waiting list and will be eligible to apply for a permit on a first-come, first-served basis, as issued permits are either not renewed, revoked, or returned to the Board of Health. So the note here is that it's a basic cap. The town has a maximum number of permits allotted. A waiting list should be started. Contact information of prospective tobacco retailers who are waiting to be contacted when a permit becomes available. That wording, almost exactly with the exception of the wording about section B10, is in our current regulations. Slightly different, I believe, but it's essentially the same. So I think that the key thing here would be whether we want to keep the number 29.
It seems that, the market forces are down to 23. I think keeping the number at 29 is fine.
Yeah, I would be in agreement with that as well.
I'll make a motion to, do we have to make a motion to approve it as written on A?
Yes, because it's not written the same.
Right. I'll make a motion to approve section A as written.
Can I ask a question? How was 29 decided upon?
I believe it's population based.
Oh, okay, sorry.
When the time that this was put in place for 29 was, the population was significantly smaller. But Then again, it would,
More people smoke.
yeah, and I would venture to guess that I personally, I would want to increase anything related to smoking, so 29 is fine in my opinion.
So at the time, how did that 29 come about population based? Is that a state regulation or?
I don't know. I'm not saying it is population based, it's my belief. I know, I'm basing that off the liquor licenses, which are population based.
That's right.
It may be that the town just decided 29, I really don't know.
Sounds like a pretty arbitrary number, so I imagine there was some formula used.
Yeah, I know when we had this discussion a while ago, we kind of sussed out that a certain percentage of the population at this time equaled 29 or something, or something per thousand or something of that nature. But there's no regulation or requirement that it has to be 29 or that it has to get to that number, so.
Did I interrupt your motion?
No, he made his full
And then
motion.
I second it. I second to keep it 29. I certainly don't want to increase it either.
So there's a motion from Kevin to approve section A as written, second from Katie. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Section B, take me a minute to just remember exactly what this was. So this is an advance cap. So as of the date that we choose to put in here, any permit not surrendered, revoked, or renewed, either because a retailer no longer sells tobacco, as defined herein, or because retailer closes the retail business, shall be returned to the Board of Health, and shall permanently be retired by the Board of Health. The total allowable number of tobacco product sales permits under paragraph A shall be reduced by the number of the retired permits.
So that means we have 20,
If one of the 23 people came back and said, I am no longer going to be using my license, I'm closing my business, or not having tobacco sales, then it would become 28.
Yes.
I don't see how that's really fair.
I understand the logic. I wouldn't be comfortable putting that in quite yet. Without, especially where we haven't given them all out.
So,
Giving them all out, I think it would be
Yeah.
a different story, because then we'd have 29 already given, and now we're just reducing the 29. We haven't even hit 29. So I don't think it makes sense for us to reduce it if we're not even hitting that number.
so I'm wondering how that would work if a business was transferred.
It states right in there, if somebody's selling the business, the permit goes with the business.
how do you feel about it?
So again, addressing health equity, the idea is to limit the number of tobacco licenses in the town. It's to reduce and eliminate tobacco use altogether. There are towns that have banned outright the sale of tobacco. I think, if you're asking my opinion, the board could also say, we're not going to do 29 anymore, we're going to drop it down to 20 and just retire them as it goes. This is
But this is kind of
a
a
passive,
nice
nice way to do it.
Yeah,
As businesses go out, like, just for example, when the flavored tobacco ban went into place, we had a 21 over shop close because they couldn't stay in business, so the permit became available again. In that case, it just would have been retired and dropped our number down. So it's not hurting anybody, it's just saying that no new tobacco is coming into town.
I mean, we do have a surplus of licenses available at this point in time too, so you could say that as the licenses do go down, that, you're still not going to be shutting anybody out from applying for a new permit because you'll still have that access availability.
In the time that I've been here, there's been no new applications for tobacco licenses.
I'm fine with that either way.
I kind of like the idea of slowly decreasing.
So, theoretically, Abington could decrease tobacco sales from 23 permits to 22, 21, 20, all the way down to 0, if all of the existing businesses should go out of business and new ones come in.
Yes,
So-
but we have more licenses, so we'd still be stuck with like the 29 minus 23.
Unless you guys could decide to.
But, so
23.
theoretically, we could cull those licenses down to zero. And according to this, Abington would become a, how do they say it, smoke-free, smokeless town?
What's the likelihood of that happening though?
What's the likelihood? Well,
I mean,
It's a low
this
likelihood,
says
but
it
it's a
can.
nice idea.
I mean, it will happen by this regulation. That is correct.
I won't live to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's by the time we would see that happen,
Too.
we would,
Be a long time.
the amount of smoking that's decreased between 1999 and now, for example, I mean,
The market forces are moving in the direction, so it's gonna be more difficult for businesses to make money off of it. So I think that's,
And it's like if it was a 7-Eleven, I
It's
mean,
not gonna
they
be
could still
regulated,
sell their
it's
other
not, but
stuff,
it's
they
gonna
just
be
wouldn't be able to sell the tobacco.
Yeah, and if a
So-
7-Eleven was coming in, they would probably, like, if one of our, we have 3 7-Elevens in Abington. If one of the owners sold and it was bought by someone else, that license goes with the store. So that new 7-Eleven would still be able to sell tobacco. It would be, if a fourth one came in, that they would.
As long as the new business buys out the old business. So we're forcing them, instead of opening their own business, we're forcing them to buy a license that they could have gotten for whatever the cost of the license currently is. But now, they're, down the road at least, at the mercy of whoever has one and how much they're willing to sell it for. So eventually, my point was that Abington would become smokeless. I don't know what the word is for not selling cigarettes, but I know there are towns that do it.
tobacco-free.
Tobacco-free, thank you. And everybody that lives in Abington, instead of going to the 7-Eleven on the corner, would hop in the car and drive to Whitman, Rockland, any surrounding town that they're close to buy cigarettes.
I think, again, like the likelihood of that happening anytime soon is slim, but in the big picture, it's promoting a healthier community,
Because
theoretically.
theoretically, because
I agree that people who
They
are
don't care
smoking
for
now are
smoking.
gonna go somewhere else to get their cigarettes, but hopefully, you know, if there's less tobacco sellers, hopefully we'd have less new, younger smokers.
I mean, at this point, we still have a surplus of 6 permits.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, your questions on the police are addressed in subsection F. The application for transfer of a tobacco product sales permit to a new owner for the sale of tobacco products from an existing location would not be prohibited by adopting that regulation. So for instance, if 7-Eleven went out, or if 7-Eleven was for sale and somebody bought it and wanted to turn it to Tedeschi's, I'm just going the opposite of what actually happened. Tedeschi's could get the permit, great, as long as they met the same conditions.
I think I wanna make a
If
motion.
Aaron had Aaron's Variety, it went out of business instead of retiring and closing the store, then that would be good.
well, and I think that saying we're gonna be smoke-free is a very long time away.
Yeah,
Because
I
I don't
agree.
foresee in the next 10 years, we're gonna lose 23 smoking establishments.
No, I don't either, but, so when that time comes, there would have to be a change of this regulation. I'm not seeing
If it's the will of the board, yeah.
the will of the board.
If the next board, next term decides to come in and say, you know what, we want to get rid of that, they can. I mean, this could change at any time. But if that's what we want to do right now, and a business closes within the next year and surrenders it, and the number goes down to 28.
I'd like to make a motion to go for it and approve section B.
Motion from Katie to approve section B is written.
I'll second that.
I mean, when I say as written, with the date that we choose, which would most likely be the effective date of this regulation.
What would that be? How does that work?
We're
When
gonna
we finalize?
We're gonna go through this regulation, then I will work with Chris, we'll write an actual, this is the regulation, we'll go through it once more and make sure that it says everything we want to say and it works out, and then we can vote on the whole regulation.
Gotta go to town council, good probably. Would be a bad idea.
Well, if we're using the wording from the Health Board Association, yeah, probably a good idea. So we'll go to town council for review, then we'll vote on it. Okay. Okay, so there's a motion from Katie to approve section B. Is there a second?
Kevin seconded.
Seconded by second.
Kevin seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
No.
Section B passes. All right. Whereas we're getting a little towards 7, and I don't want to burn us out completely, I know we're going to get to violations. Once we finish with this section, we can pause and we'll take up the rest of it at the.
Okay. So you mean C, D, E, and F?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
C is already part of our,
C is currently part of our regulations, so there should be no more. So let me just make sure. So this is a dual cap. That can be used with either the basic one or the advanced one. So it's the maximum number of permits that can go to qualifying adult-only retail tobacco stores. So this is the number of ones that can go to, not like a 7-Eleven, just kids can go in there, but something like a Brennan's or a 21-plus vape shop and things like that. So how many of those licenses can be allotted?
we currently have that in place. What is the number?
We own, that might have been a error on my part. We do not.
We do not have it.
No, this is not it.
So, all right.
So, because looking at it right now. Yep. So this is not in here. These cap ones are new additions. So we could decide not to put this in, or we could decide to do it.
Because we have none existing.
Oh,
So-
I'm sorry. Here it is here. So it's the section, so the section that's underlined at the top on my sheet, which goes until, from of the permits to in Abington, that section's not in there. The rest of it is in there.
I get you.
What are you looking at?
On the bottom of the C here, it's down here.
Okay.
Of the permits,
Yeah, so right here.
all the permits allowed in the section, there shall be no more. So essentially what it's saying is that of the 29 permits that we have, the number of tobacco products sales issued to adult-only retail establishments is X. So if we have 29, we could say that there could only be 1 or 2 of the, or whatever the number is, of adult-only smoke shops.
I'm going to make a motion that we table that until we actually know how many we have and can decide to at least be in agreement with what we already have in place.
Okay.
So I motion to table that. Second.
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 Second from Kevin. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. We will take that up. Section D, this is not in there currently. A tobacco product sales permit shall not be issued to any new applicant for a retail location within 500 feet of a public or private elementary or secondary school as measured by a straight line from the nearest point of the property line to of the school to the nearest point of the property line of the site of the applicant's business premises.
I make a motion to approve that. I think it's a lovely idea not to have smoking establishments close to schools.
Now, we want to note that this is for new retailers. Everybody else would be grandfathered in.
Do you have anybody currently?
I
I don't think we
Within
did.
500 feet.
don't believe we do.
No. Okay. All right.
So this would bar anybody from doing it. Motion from Katie to approve
Second.
section D is written. Second from Kevin. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Section D passes. Section E is similar, so tobacco sales permit shall not be issued to any new applicant for a retail location within 500 feet of a retailer with a valid tobacco product sales permit as measured by a straight line from the nearest point of the property line of the retailer with a valid tobacco product sales permit to the nearest point of the property line of the site of the applicant's business premise.
You already did this one, or it's very similar?
It's very similar. You do
25 feet.
25 feet.
But that was only for tobacco only stores.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, that's right. 25 feet between 2 adult only versus 500 feet between any tobacco. So this would be a scenario where Brennan Smoke Shop, for example,
Yep.
7-Eleven, being,
Right.
they can't be more than 500 feet.
7-Eleven and mobile and stuff like that.
But that's for new retail.
Right. I get that.
And why do we need to do this?
It addresses health equity, again, limiting the saturation of tobacco products in a community.
Not having in one part of town a bunch of them, within 500 feet close to each other.
So if a liquor store opened up in the strip mall with the 7-Eleven, they couldn't sell cigarettes.
Correct.
Why would they need to if their neighbor does?
I think most liquor stores sell cigarettes,
Yeah,
don't
they
they?
do, they do. Yeah, they do.
I think they go hand in hand, and
Well, I mean, I
people expect to buy
think
them.
that if we were to put that in place, the business would obviously take that into consideration, opening their business. It's part of the
That's
market
the
research.
point.
I see how that could be tricky from a business standpoint,
Yes.
but I also like the idea of decreasing availability as well.
I mean, it's-
Availability of cigarettes.
Yeah.
So-
Or tobacco.
So you're limiting the new business from making money.
well, as much as I want to
Yeah.
take into consideration making money, I'm more concerned about the health, because
Yeah.
we're health.
Yeah,
That's what I'm concerned about
Yeah.
here.
Just think that we have vacant storefronts in town, and we should be looking toward filling those vacant storefronts and not making regulations that limit free market.
I'd like other companies to come in maybe that don't sell tobacco products.
Okay.
This is a little
I'm
bit trickier, but
going
I
to make a
think,
motion that we table this so we can do a little more research on our part.
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Right, so we will table that. Section C and E we will chat about next time we bring this up. So the last section to chat about this before we move on for the section F, applicants who purchase or acquire an existing business that holds a valid tobacco product sales permit at the time of the sale or acquisition of said business may acquire said permit, providing the applicant submits a valid application and meets all conditions within this regulation within 60 days of such sale or acquisition of the permit held by the current permit holder if the applicant intends to sell tobacco products as defined herein. Permits for adult-only retail tobacco stores will only be issued if one is available pursuant to section 10C above.
So it would be available because they're transferring it.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
So they have 60 days to transfer the permit, or else, and I believe it's in the section that's right underneath this, it's surrendered if it's not done within 60 days.
So within 60 days of such sale,
Of the business.
so within 60 days, I'm not quite following that concept, is that you have to do it on exactly 60 days before it's sold?
Within the
More than
60
60 days?
Within the 60 days.
Yeah, so once you sell it, you have 60 days to get the permit transferred, following the process that's outlined here.
After?
Yes.
So 60 days, within 60 days of your closing date?
that seems very reasonable. About 2 months.
Yeah, so once the sale's completed, you have 2 months,
After. Okay.
which if you're buying a business that does this, I feel like that is a very
Important.
important and simple thing to get taken care of.
And this is standard language across all board health across the state.
Yeah, any Board of Health that has adopted the new regulations since these have been put out, yes. Unlike us, who have had the same one since forever. This is currently in there, I believe, in our regulations.
I'll make a motion to approve section F as written with the 60 days.
I have a motion to approve section F as written. Any second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Katie seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes. All right, so we will stop here. We have, the rest of the sections, we have our cigar sales regulated, sale of flavored tobacco products prohibited. I'm sorry, let me back up. Prohibition of smoke bars, then sale of flavored tobacco, nicotine content and electric nicotine delivery systems, and vending machines, prohibition, sale of tobacco products by educational institutions. We have violations, and then we can think about finishing it. So, we still have a few sections to go through, but
Good progress.
we've made some progress, which is great. All right, thank you for that. Our next agenda item is to approve the minutes of November 7th and November 21st. Do we have any discussion on those minutes or any action?
I'll make a motion to approve November 7th as written.
Motion to approve the minutes of November 7th is written. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Katie. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining, I wasn't here.
Opposed?
No, sorry.
All right, so those passed. Okay. And the minutes from November 21st.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for November 21st as written.
Motion to approve as written by Kevin for November 21st. Do I have a second?
I'll second again.
Katie seconds. All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Correspondence. First, I just want to thank you for everybody who's working on this and getting through it. This copy that I've been working on was emailed to everybody. It's the wording, except for where things that we had in there already are exactly the same as what we have. So anything that we discussed tonight or decided to have put into place was written in those things. But thank you for sitting through this and getting through this and making this easy. Does anybody on the board have any correspondence to share?
No.
No.
Health Department has none? Great. All right. That is the end of our agenda for the evening. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn from Kevin,
Second.
second from Katie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We are adjourned.